Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we've got another Getting Started with Age of Sigmar 3rd edition video for you, and today we're going to be looking at the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. The Ossiarch Bone Reapers are one of the very different sort of death armies. They're quite unique. They're effectively this army of animated constructs sort of composed together by Nagash from various different souls to sort of smash together and make these warriors that are a little bit better than the sum of their parts. And some of them have this sense of, independence. They're not all, automatons for Nagash. They actually have that little bit of free will, which is, weird when you think about Nagash's whole thing is he wants that dominance of will over them. But anyway, if this is an army you've been interested in by, the cool look they have, then let's get talking about first in this video exactly what this army does and how we can use it on the table. Then we'll look at how to get started with the army, what boxes to buy to be your first sort of purchases to get into the army, and then we'll look at units we can expand with, and then at the end of the video we'll give you a little sample army list to sort of play around and work with to build up your own ideas. So for starters, one of the most unique and interesting things about Ossiarch Bone Reapers is the fact that they've got a unique command point mechanic called Relentless Discipline. This sort of works, like command points, instead that you actually get more of them, and you can only generally use these with your Relentless Discipline points. You get all these different command abilities that can be used with Relentless Discipline points and stuff like that. It makes for a really interesting and unique way to play an army. It is well worth going and having a read of the FAQ, as at current point there is a massive FAQ on how Relentless Discipline points work in the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, so definitely go have a solid read of that. The army, though, is very strong defensively. It's got some really good buffs, it's got some really tough units, got regeneration and all that sort of stuff, and this also just plays well to the grind. The army can sit there and sort of fight for multiple rounds on combat against your opponent, just slowly grinding them down. You're not going to wipe anyone off the table all that quick, but what you are going to do is you're going to slowly win out the victory by slowly taking down your opponent and not dying yourself. The army, at its core, is generally pretty infantry heavy. There are some builds you can definitely do with the army that make it a much more cavalry focused force, but for the most part, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, just straight out the book, are looking like a more infantry heavy force. That said, they have a wide variety of support pieces, from cool long-range catapults to wizards to some fast-moving flying heavy infantry to other units of heavy infantry, and as we've mentioned, cavalry. So you've got the ability to make a really cool infantry center to your force and then have some various support pieces around that give you that sort of mixed arms, take on all comers sort of force. Lastly, probably one of the coolest things about the army is they're just flat out immune to battle shock. It's not something you ever have to care about. This is great when learning a new army that just can completely ignore one phase of the game on your part. Obviously, you still want to make your opponent take battle shock, but you don't have to worry about it at all. And so, where do we start? First of all, I recommend picking up a Liege Kavalos. This box set has a named character variation of the model as well, called Arch Kavalos Xantos. You could choose to build him, especially if you're going to go down a Mortis Praetorians route, of which he is a named character from. But I think just building the generic one is a great way to get started with your force. You've obviously got other sort of big head honcho leaders, things like Arkan, the Black, Nagash and Katakros are all sort of going to compete, but if you're playing at small points levels to start with, I don't think you can go past the Liege Kavalos. He does a decent amount of damage. He's got a 3-up save, meaning you can go to that all-important 2-up, and he's got a ward save built in thanks to being a death model. And he also does some cool mortal wounds on impact and has a command ability to give an extra attack to a unit nearby him. Pretty darn solid. The unit and the box set I recommend picking up is definitely Mortek Guard. They are your main sort of battle line troop. They're a good foot infantry troop, 4-up base save, and then they've got the ability with their shield wall ability, which is a command ability. They can use Relentless Discipline points to get reroll save rolls on them. You've also got Nadirite weapons where you get exploding 6s to hit, and there's ways you can increase that to 5-ups with different spells in the army. I definitely think for this unit, I think Nadirite blades are better. The rend is just so important. Spears are good if you've got like a 40 blob and you're really going to pack in those attacks, but for me, most of the time, you're going to want to go the Nadirite blades and get the rend on the attacks. You've obviously got the options, and especially when you're starting in 10-man units, because you are on 25mm bases with these Mortek Guard, you're really not going to need the spears for any reason. It's definitely building swords, or the Netherite blades rather, is the way to go. But what can we do to expand our force from here? Well, first of all, I recommend picking up one of the heroes called a Mortisan Bone Shaper. So Bone Shapers have a really cool ability where they can help bring back Mortek units around them. They return models to units and heal models in your army. They're just a really useful wizard to have around. Definitely this would be my first pickup after your initial purchases, without a doubt. Just rebuilding those Mortek units and all you other units in your army, really, and just keeping everything alive and keeping it all sort of functioning that little bit longer. Kavalos Death Riders are another unit that are great, especially if you start looking to get your army up into the 2,000 point range and you're needing that extra battle line. Maybe taking 2 units of Mortek and a unit of Kavalos Death Riders, maybe that can be an option you can play with. Kavalos Death Riders have some pretty cool rules. They are your only other battle line unit available to you. What they have going for them is they've got the Netherite weapons, so they've got the exploding sixes to hit, just like your other units. But they also have the Death Rider Wedge, where they get some mortal wound on impact, which is really nice. They've also got a 4-up save base and 3 wounds, which is pretty darn solid. So they're a really tough unit, as well as hitting pretty hard when they charge for cavalry. Once again, we're going to talk about focusing on keeping your units alive, and a Gothic Harvester is next. This is the weird crocodile smash monster you see there with the little crotch grabber. You can see the dude there, sort of, there's all these arms on it, and sort of grabs and passes all the bones that it collects on the battlefield back behind it. It's a really, really cool model. So it has the Bone Harvest ability, where it sort of you roll a dice each time an enemy model is slain within 3 inches of this model. On a 4+, you pick one friendly Ossiarch Bone Reapers model unit within 6 inches of this model. If you do so, that slain model had a wounds characteristic of 4 or less. You can allocate a wound back to them. So you can use it to sort of, once again, just heal your models. It sort of kills stuff and then goes and picks up and heals your units around it. Another just great piece for keeping those units you and your army in the fight longer, allowing you to play that grind game. Lastly, we have the Mortek Crawler, which is an amazing artillery piece. It's got a really cool, accurate attack, actually, and this can take out quite a lot of units in the game really easily. It is just something that can just do a ton of damage. It can be a little bit swingy at times, but if you get these to hit, they do a massive amount of damage. And so, lastly, what I've got here is a little sample army list for everyone. Now, 750 points is a great point value to get started at, so let's have a look. First of all, we're going to be playing in a legion called Petrifex Elite. Now, this allegiance, or sub-faction allegiance rather, much like the actual allegiance abilities for the whole army as a whole, like Relentless Discipline, has an FAQ. What it does now is it is no longer +1 save, it is ignoring a point of rend, which is pretty cool. So you can actually get +1 save from Mystic Shield or stuff like that onto the unit, which is really nice, and then you also ignore a point of range just naturally. This can make these units in your army extremely hard to deal with, just keeping you in that fight that little bit longer. Once again, just playing into that grind game. For grand strategy, gone with Hold the Line. It's just because we've got a great lot of battle line units that are really going to stick into the fight as long as they can. And we've gone Inspired on the Triumph for +1 on wound. This could be really cool. If you're going to combine this with, say, your Liege Kavalos putting extra attacks on one of the Mortek Guard units we've got in the army, and you're really wanting to kill something, Inspired could be really good. If you spike on those 6s to hit, you're really going to do a lot of damage. Now, the Liege Kavalos here, we've gone for him being our general, and he's going to have the command trait and artifact that he has to have due to being Petrifex Elite, and they're not bad. So he's got the Godbone Armor, which is the artifact he has to take, and the first wound allocated to the bearer in each phase is negated. It's pretty solid an artifact. And then he's got the command trait where he adds 2 to his wounds characteristic. Once again, this is just solid. They're really good sub-faction command trait and artifacts here that are really going to help you in the game. Now, we've gone for a Mortisan and Bone Shaper as well. This is the model that helps us bring back other models. You can sort of heal our units around it. And we've gone for the spell on this. We've gone for Empower Netherite Weapons. So, Empower Netherite Weapons has a casting value of 5. It's successfully cast. You pick one friendly Ossiarch Bone Reapers unit that has Netherite Weapons, the whole within 24 inches of the caster, and visible to them. To the start of your next hero phase, the unit's Netherite weapons cause 2 hits to be scored on an unmodified roll of a 5+, or 4+ instead of 6 if that unit is Kavalos Death Riders and are attacking with their spears on the turn they charge. So this just increases your ability to get some hits out of the unit. This can really allow you to turn on one of your units and do a little bit of extra damage. And speaking of units, we've just gone pretty simple here with 3 units of 10 Mortek Guard. This is going to set you up really good for the future, but also it's going to really show you how that grind game can sort of work with the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. You're just going to sort of sit there, hold the objectives, and just move your Liege Kavalos and Bone Shaper between these units and between a couple of the objectives you're holding onto, while your opponent tries to, I guess, shift you, and probably not have much luck as your Kavalos can sort of go in, help with the fight, put +1 attack on, and your Bone Shaper can sort of keep your units alive as you're sort of switching out of which combats are needed for your characters to be near and which ones are not. Everything in the army is wrapped up inside a little battle regiment, so it's a 1-drop army, 740 points. Triumph isn't guaranteed, but it's got a chance of happening at 10 points under. No reinforcement, or reinforced units rather, no allies, 42 wounds is pretty solid, and as mentioned, a 1-drop army. If you're playing with Ossiarch Bone Reapers in the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, I'd love to hear from you on what you've been doing, and if you've just picked them up, I'd love to hear from you even more. Let us know how you've gone about building your first Ossiarch Bone Reapers army. Well, that's the end of the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you'd like to, you can come over and chat more with us here at Cinderful Gaming and our fine little community over on Discord. You'll find a link to that Discord in the description of the video. Lastly, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. And if you'd like to help support the channel via Patreon or YouTube members, you can do so by one of the links in the video's description once again. But a special shout out to all our patrons: Christian Weir, James, Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, and Dynat226. And another special shout out to our YouTube members: Greenridge Gaming, Kenton Young, Steve T, The Real Zeop, Chris Wallace, Turo12, Vinny, Lock Lorick, Matt Mollin, Becca Kinsky Groupie, and the Johnny84. And lastly, a definite special shout out first of all to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel, and to Xmorphic, who does all the background work for our Discord server, keeping everything there running smoothly, because I am completely computer illiterate. Thank you very much. But that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe again. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.